Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, Capital One Bank, Eastern Consolidated, M&T Bank, Sterling National Bank, Meridian Capital Group, the Witkoff Organization, Ariel Property Advisors, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Mortgage Lending, Perfect Building Maintenance, Genova Burns. Additional funding has been provided by AKA Hotels Corming Communities, AmTrust Title Insurance Company, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Cohen Equities, Colliers International NYC, Collins Building Services, Connect One Bank, CPEX Real Estate Services, Dime Community Bank, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties Handler Real Estate Organization, Hodges Ward Elliott Inc., iFunding, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Madison Realty Capital, Matone Group, Mercantile Commerce Bank, New Banks, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, People's United Bank, Polsonelli, Rosewood Realty Services, SJP Properties, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Knackle Group at Cushman & Wakefield, the Moynihan Group, and These Friends.
His name is Michael Steinhardt. He's considered one of the world's leading investors, probably one of the best investors ever. He's also a mensch who's been involved with major charities, and here for part two. So how did the decision of the name of the firm come out? There were three of you.
Yeah, there were three of us. Berkowitz, Fine, Steinhardt. We flipped a coin, and I won.
Only one-time flip?
I think
You didn't do best 2 out of 3?
I don't remember, but I know I won.
So,
and we all somehow found that very important. We all wanted to have our name first. Funny.
So this is, you're 27 years of age. You start this business over here. You have a total capital of about $7.1 million.
Correct.
And what's the trading philosophy of this new hedge fund?
Well, I'm not sure, in retrospect, that there was exactly a philosophy. The philosophy was to achieve the greatest possible return. And we were one of the first hedge funds, and I felt uncomfortable about the fact that our compensation was 20% of the profits and 1% of the assets, which at that time, certainly, relative to the vast bulk of the investment management world, was extraordinarily high. It had developed as the typical hedge fund compensation, but it was egregiously high. So I knew that in order to justify that compensation, we had to have fantastic performance.
Which you did. The first year you had close to a 30% return, right?
No. First year, I think it was 3 months, we had 99%. And for our entire 29 years, we averaged about 30% per year.
30% per year. A lot of the articles talk about you traded short, you did large volumes, you question your traders, you really put them on a test. You wanted to make sure that they understood. I think there was one story about the IBM stock. The guy comes into you and he says, I want to buy this amount. You say, you sure you only want to buy this amount? And then you bought 25 and you took a large position of your capital business in there. What happens that one day in a couple years after you took a 1-year sabbatical? What happened?
I took a year sabbatical in 1978-79, which was 12 or 13 years into the partnership.
But you're a young kid at this time. You're still
30-something, yeah.
36 years of age.
But having grown up in Bensonhurst, and having grown up surrounded mostly by liberal, left-wing Semites, the idea of making a lot of money somehow never was my primary motivation. I was totally committed to be the best money manager I could be, and maybe the best money manager there was. But even in the first years, I made so much money relative to anything I was used to that it was wonderful on one hand and a little bit confusing on another hand.
But part of that history helped you meet Judy, your partner in life. You met her because you used to have a carpool.
I used to go down in a carpool with, I think, 3 women and 1 or 2 men, and the entire ride down, these, or at least some of these people, would be the grand inquisitors in terms of
Steinhardt, tell me what the next stock is.
Exactly. They would always utz me, and I was always comfortable. I told them what I was doing.
So what did Judy say when you said, I'm taking this year off?
Well, that was a long time afterwards.
I mean, it's 12 years. Right?
Yeah, that was a long time after the carpool and all that. But somehow, through that period in my life and beyond, the idea of making Aliyah stayed in my conscious a fair amount. But I never did it. And it was another thing I felt guilty about. Felt guilty about being an atheist. Felt guilty about not going to Israel.
But what about the menagerie? How'd that come about?
Well, the menagerie came
you
about.
grew up in Brooklyn. I mean, there was a zoo at Prospect Park. You didn't go around, but you didn't know about menageries. And
when we bought this place in Bedford, I considered this place a place where I would have no constraints. I would do whatever really interested me. And one of the things that interested me was animals. So I, before too long, had a large aviary with all sorts of birds and then all sorts of mammals, and it was great joy. We made jam. We had wonderful fruits. I grew every imaginable
you even tried to be in the
berry.
wine business.
Tried to make wine, which was fun. Didn't produce such great wine, but it was enjoyable. I had 60, and still do have 60 or so different apple trees, mostly from antique apple stock. And I would be able to taste the differences amongst these apples and amongst these pears. And I'd grow all sorts of fruit. And before too long, I became interested in maples. And we probably have the largest collection of maples, mostly Japanese, but not entirely Japanese maples, in North America.
So this is 1 year. You're thinking of Israel, you're thinking of other things, and you take this 1 year. And you come back in 79, right?
Correct.
So what happens in 79? Your partners there's a change?
I went to Israel hoping, perhaps unrealistically, that I could myself show that Israel was a decent place to invest. Because up until the 90s, Israel was a highly bureaucratic, socialist-oriented place where that terrible expression, if you want to make a small fortune in Israel, start with a big fortune, was the prevalent view.
But you invested in Israel at those
And I did. I found someone who was building small industrial parks in various towns in the south, and he became my partner.
In addition, okay, you come back, Howard and your other partner go out on their own, and Steinhardt Partners created.
Correct.
The movie business?
Oh, well, I made movies with several different people. I made more with a man named Amos Kulick, the son of
Teddy.
Teddy Kulick. And then I made him with another fellow named Tom Baer. And I had a perfect record in movies. I did not make a profit once.
That's like the horse business, the same idea.
That's like what?
The horse business.
Yeah, sort of, right.
So now it's 1984, I think. What was the bad year?
My really bad year was 1994.
No, I know, but in the 80s. 87, we have the
87 was the year the market fell apart.
the market fell apart, but you recovered pretty well shortly after that.
I was up a great deal into that break in the market, and I lost my profits, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible.
Let's
and
talk
then-
about 94.
Then the worst year was 94. It was the only year in the 29 years where I lost a meaningful amount of money. I think I was down 27 or 28%.
But you followed up and came back.
I followed one last year in 1995 and came back.
So
but by
what-
this point, I had resolved in my head that I was not going to spend the rest of my life, and this is the expression I used to use, making rich people richer, because most of my investors were affluent individuals, and that's what I did.
So it's 1995, but you had thought that you were going to dedicate your life to Jewish causes. Why? I mean, you had
Because-
given money to the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens before that.
Yeah.
You had given money to the Steinhardt School of Education at NYU. What was this growing thing, this epiphany that hit you, okay, with the
Well-
Jewish Network and the other programs?
Yeah. I went through a period of deep introspection. What was I going to do with my life? What would be, I used words like what would be ennobling and value. And one thing I did in that regard is I got involved in politics, and I was chairman of something called the DLC, Democratic Leadership Council, for 10 years. And that was the organization that brought the Clintons to power. And I liked it for a while, and for a while it seemed that we would come up with an idea and it would somehow find its way into the political dialogue. So, for instance, we came up with an idea called negative income tax, where if you didn't make enough money to live above or at the poverty level, the government would give you some additional income so that you could live at the poverty or above the poverty level. And the concept was that no one who worked a full week in the United States should live in poverty. So that was one idea. And there were a number of others that were sort of on the right wing of the Democratic Party. And there was, generally speaking at that time, a good response to them. But after having done it for a while, I really was uncomfortable with the politicians I met as a group. I mean, they really were not interested so much in the ennobled aspects of America. They were interested in their own careers. They were interested in making money. They were interested in all sorts of things which didn't so much interest me.
But it's 95, and you dedicate your life and your personal wealth in creating many things with Yates, Greenberg, and so on.
With Yates Greenberg, yes. So after this political experience, I decided I was going to devote myself to what I called the Jewish future. And from 95 through now, I devote most of my time to Jewish innovation, to coming up with new ideas.
So let's talk about some of the innovation. I mean, I think the leading innovation that most people hear about today is Birthright, which has celebrated more than 500,000
between 550 and 600,000
600,000.
people have gone through Birthright.
How do you decide, you and Charles Brofman decide about Birthright?
The idea of going to Israel, of trips to Israel, was one that had been in a minor way around for a while. And I think it was Yitz Greenberg who talked to me about it with the view that this could really help change the Jewish world. Now, I should step back and say it was my view then, and to some degree still is, that we in the non-Orthodox diaspora are problemed. We don't know Hebrew. We're not interested in Jewish education. Typically, as soon as we get bar bat mitzvah, we stop any Jewish education. And it has resulted in a large group of relatively undereducated Jews. And it was my hope that through Birthright and other things, we would begin to turn this around. And to some degree, I think we succeeded. And I think that Birthright has been the single most impactful program in the Jewish world in certainly the last 25 years.
Now, on the millennium, you decided to celebrate it by going to Birthright on the first trip, right?
I went along with Birthright kids on an El Al flight on the first trip. Yes.
And you addressed something, you addressed the group in January of that year.
That's correct. That's correct.
Now, so Birthright, close to 600,000 for a 10-day trip, which is growing by leaps and bounds. And Birthright has other programs in addition to the 10-day trip.
Birthright I started another program called Birthright Excel. Birthright itself is for anyone. There's no criteria, there's no tests, there's no demands.
It's an open program if you're a college student, 18 to 26.
Exactly. Birthright Excel, which is a much smaller program, was a program for the best and the brightest. And what we did there is we created a 90-day internship program in Israel in some of Israel's best companies, mostly but not entirely technology. And these American kids who were typically juniors and seniors at the best schools in America went to Israel for this period of time and worked at these companies. And our hope has been and continues to be that it will inspire the best of our people to have a real commitment to Israel, to understand what Israel is all about, and enhance the Jewish future.
Let's talk a little bit about your involvement with Hillel and Hillel at the University of Pennsylvania.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, I went to Hillel soon after I started at Penn, but I'm about to do a new program with Hillel, and it's going to be a program of Jewish innovation, and I think my intention is to give this program $5 million, and the hope is that it will help revitalize Hillel throughout the broad world that Hillel operates in.
Now, the Steinhardt Foundation today, which took over the other name of the Jewish Network before, Jewish Life Network or whatever
something
it is,
like that,
has like 10 major programs today. What are some of the other programs?
Well, we've done a number of things. Again, I whatever I've done Jewishly has been outside the traditional Jewish institutional world. So at one point, I bought a building on West 67th Street.
Makor.
Good, called Makor, which was for Jews in their 20s and 30s who were secular mostly, and it allowed them to come to this place and listen to Jewish music and eat food and watch Israeli and other Jewish movies and have wonderful Jewish programming with the, I didn't exactly say this, I think my objective in part, was to improve Jewish demography and have Jews marry other Jews. I'm not so committed to that last point anymore, because more than half the Jewish marriages in the non-Orthodox world are to a non-Jew, and there's been a miracle of sorts whereby the progeny of intermarried couples are now being brought up, 60 or 70% of them anyway, as Jews. So I'm really more optimistic.
But one of your biggest programs, I think it's been written about and you've been speaking about it, and we'll get to your family, about your daughter, is Jewish day schools.
I was committed to Jewish day schools in a serious way, and I started a program called PEJE, P-E-J-E, Partnership for Excellence in Jewish Education. And at that time, this was in the 90s, the idea was that if we could dramatically increase the number of kids going to day schools, it would really be wonderful. And what PEJE did, we had a number of partners, and we gave money to start new Jewish day schools. So if there was, say, a synagogue in New Mexico, we would offer that synagogue a certain amount of money, and they would have to put up the money themselves, and they would start a Jewish day school in New Mexico. And we did this in all sorts of remote places, and we started 60 or 70 or 80, I'm not sure anymore, day schools. But outside of the Orthodox world, it didn't create the resonance. It didn't create the growth I hoped it to create. And I have concluded that day schools per se are not the future of the non-Orthodox diaspora. What I also am doing indirectly, and about this I'm really excited, is, well, it's my daughter who's doing it. I'm just a
funder, a coach and
a funder as well, where we've started an organization. It's called Hebrew Public, and we have 10 schools, 10 Hebrew immersion charter schools. And we have 2, and soon to be a 3rd in New York, and 1 in New Jersey, and 1 in Washington, 1 in Minnesota, 1 in San Diego, 1 in Los Angeles. And the idea is to have a public charter school that teaches Hebrew as it's spoken in Israel. And the schools have as their population blacks, Hispanics, other minorities, and Jews. And the quality of the education is phenomenal. And it's really an exciting idea.
What about the STAR program?
Oh, you remember the STAR program was a program that we started to try to reinvigorate synagogues. And the idea was that instead of on a Shabbat evening, for there to be one service, we had 3 services or 4 services. One was dance, and one was a lecture, and one was the traditional service. And the idea was to do enough things to meaningfully increase the number of people coming to synagogue on Shabbat.
And what about your own personal involvement in Israel? You invested. You were invested with Bank Hapolim later on. You've been involved, but living. You have homes in Israel, don't you?
I have a beautiful house in Jerusalem, and it's sometimes called the Buber House because Martin Buber lived there from 1950 or so until his death in the early 60s. And I go there 2 or 3 times a year, and I consider it my home.
How did you decide to write the book? No bull. My life in and out of the markets.
My life in and out of markets. I decided to write the book after I had finished my career on Wall Street and was at the early stages of my efforts for our Jewish people, and I thought it would be a nice thing to capture my life in a book.
Let's talk about the next generation. Okay, before we go to the next generation, how do you decide to get involved with the Forward and the New York Sun and the New Republic?
Well, there was a period in my life when I did all sorts of things geared to enhancing the Jewish future. One of which was creating an English edition with Seth Lipsky, who was a terrific editor, an English edition of the Forward. And there is an English edition of the Forward, which continues to, it's pretty good today, actually. And working with the same individual, we started a New York newspaper called The Sun, which, again, in terms of quality, was absolutely outstanding. And in terms of losing money, it was also outstanding. Whoa, did we lose money?
Yeah.
But that's why I did those things.
Let's talk about your children.
I have 3 children. David is the oldest, and he is wonderful. He is involved in a Jewish organization called Natan, which brings together a variety of relatively young philanthropists and gives money to Jewish causes. He's also runs a hedge fund, and he also is the president of a money management organization that's mostly based in Israel. And he has 2 kids with 1 on the way.
But let's talk about your daughter.
My daughter has 6 children. She's involved in the charter schools.
In the charter schools. And then you have a son in Arizona?
I have a son in Arizona, and he has 4 children.
More important is you've had a partner, Judy, for how many years you've been married?
My wife, Judy, have been married for 48 years. We've lived in the same apartment on 97th Street and 5th Avenue for 48 years. We are very, it seems like very conservative people, not having moved apartments. And we've had this place in Bedford now for over 30 years, and that's the single most important place in my life in terms of a physical venue.
So, thank God for your mother and your dad, and Saul giving you the bar mitzvah gift, okay? It's beshet, as they would say.
Beshet, yeah. Yeah,
Thanks for being here.
Life is fortuitous.
And thanks for being here.
You're most welcome, sir. Thank you.